Welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat, founder at Online Seller UK, and today we've got another interesting topic. It's regarding Vendor Central account and Vendor Central management. So the topic specific to it is Amazon now has some new shipping requirements for vendors, and what are they? And we'll dive into that. And that's to do with ASN version 2, mixed palleting, and so on. So I'm joined by Chris, who is founder of KooCommerce. Welcome to our podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Prabhat. Looking forward to getting into it today.
Excellent. I think let's start with your better introduction than what I did, and then we take it from there.
Sure. So nice to meet you all. I'm Chris, co-founder of KooCommerce. We are a UK-based software company that does integrations for companies to Amazon vendor. The main things we're aiming to do are reduce manual effort, processing orders, making shipments Monday morning, Wednesday morning, and in so doing, also reducing the human error, chargebacks, and shortage claims that go with that. There are big three things: time, shortages, and chargebacks. And we often see that once vendor accounts get to a certain size, those three things become parasitic to the profitability of the account. You could be looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars worth of loss just in churning admin processes. And we do a software tool which cuts that down, makes it much more efficient to operate. And my real passion is talking to a business, understanding how they work, and looking at, often it's the way they process orders or they run their warehouse that originate some of these problems. Some of them, obviously, some of the problems sit beyond their control. It's on Amazon side, it's on the carrier side, but we're trying to do as much as we can to prevent those issues from happening in the first place. I've been doing this for about 7 years. We work with businesses in the UK, the US, Europe. Every year, our platform processes over $1 billion worth of goods to Amazon. It blows my mind. It's really cool. And I'm an absolute geek for looking at how warehouses work. It's just fun to me. They're a really fun place to go. So yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Excellent. So let's start talking as we start in what is changing in terms of pallet shipping with Amazon vendors.
Yeah, so Amazon introduced a thing called ASN version 2. So ASN is Advanced Shipment Notification. And whenever you make a shipment to Amazon in Vendor Central, you will need to make an ASN. And they've introduced what they call version 2. They actually launched this in the summer of 2025, but it's kind of been a soft launch, and they're continuing to encourage people and migrate people over to the new workflow. Essentially, it introduced a few different changes, but probably the biggest ones for your listeners will be the palletized arrangement. And what I mean by that is for shipments that are going on pallets, you used to be able to just say, I'm sending you 5 pallets worth of stuff, and here's all my boxes, and that's it. But what they want now is they want you to say, well, box 1 to 50 is pallet 1, and box 51 to 120 is pallet 2, and everything in between. Maybe it's not quite so clean cut as that. So for some vendors, this won't be too much of a challenge. If you think of Coca-Cola or drinks cartons, it's very, simple, just mono ASIN pallets. It's quite simple cubes. But for some people, and particularly if you've got large shipments, there might be 3 or 4 pallets at least that are very mixed. And that information needs to be captured in some way and needs to be transmitted to Amazon. And if it isn't, you run the risk of more charges with them, more delays, and inaccurate receipt. But the reality is it's a complete pain to capture that information. So that's what I want to talk about today, but that's the main nutshell of what's changed for vendors.
So again, the obvious question is how can we mechanize or systemize to get over this challenge then?
Yeah, so there are a few different ways that companies are approaching it. One is they kind of look at it and they just say, well, we don't want to do that. Our warehouse won't do it. Our 3PL won't do it. And so they don't, which is one approach to it. It's like the same thing with carton labeling. I would discourage that approach. For now, there is no specific chargeback for getting it wrong, but I'm sure they will introduce one. And even if there's no chargeback, you're running the risk of a slow receive or an inefficient receive. So you have to capture it in some way. So one way that people do it is they write it down they have a pick list. At the moment, they'll already be saying this is boxes 1 to 6, this is boxes 7, 8, 9, and so on. And then they put another column that says it's now pallet number 1. But what that means in practice is that the person is stacking the pallet and then writing it, and then stacking the next thing and writing it. Or maybe they pack a whole load, box 1 to 40, and then they just draw a line and say it's pallet number 1 and go from there. So you could capture it manually. The other way you can capture it is through some sort of warehouse management system. Maybe you're scanning the boxes on a particular pallet. So that way you might build it all first, and depending on the size of your carton, you might be able to always read one of the barcodes on the outside. And you walk around with a scan gun, and you can scan the outside of each label, and then you'll capture which box was on that particular pallet, which is obviously something we support, but another warehouse management system might also support that. And then the other thing that you might do, which is something I want to briefly show in a moment, is you could have a system calculate an arrangement for you. So it could take all your item dimensions, take your pallet dimensions, maximum weight, and various other configurations, and then give you a suggested arrangement for how that could look. So I think there's the three main approaches that people are taking to that particular issue.
Okay, so you were talking about demos. So let's, if you could share your screen and talk to us on that, that'd be good. And while
Yes.
you're, yeah, while you're doing that, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about different system when Amazon introduced, there's no penalty for now, but a lot of times when Amazon introduces system, there may not be a penalty, but like you said, it's better to be prepared for it because at some point they might have a penalty for it. So, okay, yeah, talk to us about this brilliant cube you're showing me.
Yeah, this is actually a slightly older version of the palette arrangement we have, but essentially what you're seeing is each of these different colored boxes is a different item, or a different type of item. And the arrow is the orientation of that particular box, and then this is one way of stacking that pallet. But there are many different factors that go into how pallets should be stacked, whether it's brick stacking, layer stacking, fragility, density, how close you want items to be to each other, any kind of spacing in from the side, for example. It's a very complicated problem to solve. And if you gave 100 people 100 boxes and told them to put them on pallets, they would each do it a different way. What we're trying to do here is give people a tool that will try and generate an arrangement for them which makes sense for how they work and for what type of product they're shipping. So there are a number of different variables that go into how this gets calculated. I won't break them all down in complete depth right here, but essentially it's looking at how important is it to you to minimize the height? How important is it to you to put items closely together in one big block? How important is it to you to have no or minimal overhang from one layer to the next? Things like this go into the calculation. But essentially, the system can try and determine how the arrangement should be built. And what's quite nice from a kind of admin perspective, if you're running a large company and you've got lots of palletized shipments going out the door, is you can just give this as an instruction to your warehouse of here's how we want you to pack the particular shipment. Because when we speak to some of our larger customers, typically they have a dedicated function for this type of process sometime in the week, maybe Tuesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. Someone has to open up a big spreadsheet, use some macros, and try and determine what this should be. So this is a mixture of mainly mathematics and then some artificial intelligence to be able to try and determine the optimal arrangement for a pallet. But like I say, there are lots of different variables that go into how the end result might be built. And we allow you to tweak and tune and change those depending on what you want to do. So yeah, and ultimately, as with all these things, it really thrives on good data. So if you've got your item dimensions set wrong or your carton dimensions set wrong, then it's not going to be an accurate depiction of what you'll be able to achieve. And some items don't play very nicely in this because everything we're modeling as a cuboid. But it is still a really great first approximation for the majority of items and cartons that are getting packed. And we have seen really good feedback from our users around this for those people that are sending, even 2 or 3 mixed SKU pallets. It can just generate the arrangement for you, give it layer by layer, give you a printout, give you the label, everything all in one hit, rather than needing to do that kind of manual process of trying to figure out what goes where.
Okay, excellent. It's all about, like you said, building efficiency in the process that we do. So, okay, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
Yeah, there were a few other things that changed in the ASN version 2. I would encourage people, if they already have an EDI connection, that it will be upgraded to version 2. And Amazon is no longer onboarding people on version 1. So if you're using an EDI connection, you should check with your team that it's suitable for version 2. Um,
Mhm.
Part of our service, obviously, is we are providing EDI connections. All of ours are currently upgraded, but we would encourage you to have that conversation with your provider. Secondly, if you're not capturing it at all and you are doing it manually, we would love to be able to help and support you with that if it's a particular pain point internally, friction wise. Here, we're just talking about palletized shipments, one aspect of it, but the whole process from start to finish can be manual, can be having issues, and particularly if you've got back and forth with your warehouse, whether internal or a 3PL, it can be a common source of pain and problems for people. And as businesses scale, we just want to really make sure that scaling is sustainable. So yeah, I would definitely encourage have those conversations with your IT team if you have it. There are some other changes that came in ASN version 2, which we've not talked about. They changed some codes to do with carrier codes. They changed the way they handle the license plate receive coding in the language in the background. They allowed for additional carton mapping for carrier tracking numbers, which is really cool. But what we're always keen to tell people to do is get ahead of the curve, and don't be playing catch up with Amazon. Their common thing is they introduce a new feature, they will then deprecate the old way of doing it, and then they will start to implement a charge for not adhering to the new feature, which I think will probably be. It seems reasonable to me that it's 1 year after the start date that they would then say, "Hey, we need you to be compliant with this." So, yep, I would just make myself available to your listeners to say if anyone would like some help, just let us know. Um, I am a real, I really enjoy making sure these things work well and work well for people on the ground. So, yeah, I'd be happy to chat to your listeners about that.
Okay, excellent. So before we end, where's the best place to find you, Chris? Say if somebody wants to book a call and talk a few things like this.
Probably LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. That's a really great place to message me. You can also just reach me directly. My email is chris@koocommerce.com, or my details are all on our website. It's koocommerce.com. So yeah, I'd be
Excellent.
glad to hear from anyone down there.
Excellent, Chris. Thank you again for your time today, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best for now.
Thanks very much.
Yes.